Good morning. I'm Hassan Giordano, and this is your DMV Daily Dose for Monday, January 6, 2020.
It's currently cloudy and 37 degrees in Baltimore. Expect mostly clear skies starting in the morning. Today's high will be 46 degrees, and the low will be 35.
Well, we now know who the Baltimore Ravens will be facing this Saturday night at 8:15 p.m. down at the bank. The number 6 seed Tennessee Titans were able to put Tom Brady and the New England Patriots into retirement this postseason. Now, other wildcard winners were the Houston Texans, who will face off against the number 2 seed Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC, while the Minnesota Vikings defeated the Drew Brees-led New Orleans Saints to face the San Francisco 49ers this weekend, and the Seattle Seahawks beat up on the Philadelphia Eagles to move on to face the Green Bay Packers. Let's go Ravens. Danielle Gaines of Maryland Matters was reporting on the day former delegate Tawana Gaines, a delegate from Prince George's County, was sentenced to federal prison for stealing campaign funds. House Speaker Adrian Jones, a Democrat from Baltimore County, on Friday named replacements for the 2 high-ranking positions that Gaines held and rounded out her leadership team. Jones also doled out committee assignments for the newest members of the House of Delegates, who are preparing for their very first General Assembly session, which begins this Wednesday. Delegate Mark Chang, a Democrat from Anne Arundel County, will replace Gaines as chair of the Appropriations Capital Budget Subcommittee. Delegate Ben Barnes, a Democrat from Prince George's County, will be vice chair of the panel. Additionally, Delegate Michael Jackson, Democrat from Prince George's County, will replace Gaines as Appropriations vice chair. The House Ways and Means Committee will also have a new vice chair, Delegate Alonzo T. Washington, a Democrat from Prince George's County, who replaces a fellow Prince Georgian, Delegate Jay Walker. Walker is moving over to the Economic Matters Committee, where he will serve as vice chair of the Alcohol Subcommittee. And Delegate Talmadge Branch, from right here in Baltimore City in the 45th District, who also serves as the House Majority Whip and is currently running for the vacant 7th congressional seat, will chair that subcommittee. Now, be sure to go over to Maryland Matters and find this article to find out the rest of the changes and the appointments made by Maryland's first African-American Speaker of the House, Delegate Adrian Jones. Now, speaking of former state delegate Tawana Gaines, who was sentenced Friday to 6 months in federal prison, plus another 2 months of home detention after admitting to stealing about $22,000 in campaign funds. Maryland Matters' Josh Kurtz is reporting that several prominent Marylanders, including Maryland Court of Appeals Judge Michelle Houghton, appeared in federal court in Greenbelt Friday to testify to Gaines' character, calling her a selfless and dedicated public official. But U.S. District Court Judge Theodore Chang, who resided over the case, said that Gaines had committed serious offenses that threatened to undermine democracy. Quote, "Public corruption is evil and cannot be tolerated in a democratic society," he said. Gaines, a 19-year veteran of the House of Delegates, stepped down in October and pleaded guilty to 1 count of wire fraud several days later. She was vice chair of the House Appropriations Committee and was supposed to take over the Capital Budget Subcommittee as well. She formerly served as mayor of Berwyn Heights. Now, the 67-year-old Prince George's County Democrat was charged with withdrawing campaign funds for friends at an ATM and a PayPal account totaling about $22,000. In a separate case, her daughter, Anitra Edmond, who had served as her campaign treasurer, also pleaded guilty to stealing about $35,000 from the campaign fund. Her sentencing is scheduled for next month. Olivia Sanchez of the Baltimore Sun-owned Capital Gazette is reporting on a plan by one state legislator that allows for anyone with a warrant out for their arrest in Anne Arundel County to have their tax refund withheld under a proposal by Senator Ed Riley. Now, when Maryland lawmakers return to Annapolis this Wednesday for the 2020 General Assembly session, it will be the second time that the Crofton Republican tries to convince them to pass his plan. And it's likely not completely foreign to residents either, since it used to be law in Anne Arundel County. Now, it started as a pilot program, the senator said, and after a few years, the policy was adopted by other counties with a sunset provision. But when lawmakers tried to make the law permanent, Senator Riley said it failed. Opponents said the policy disproportionately impacts marginalized groups because of racial disparities in policy. Now, according to a 2018 report on the program from the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, it showed just that blacks were disproportionately affected by the law. A total of 204 individuals had their tax refunds withheld because of a warrant. 101 of those were individuals who were African American, while 97 were white. Now, reports from 2017 and 2016 also show that more than half of the individuals impacted in Anne Arundel County were African American, while the U.S. Census Bureau estimates that in Anne Arundel County, blacks only make up 17.9% of the population, while whites make up 74.2%. However, Senator Riley still believes that the policy is colorblind, stating that the warrant intercept program is blind to race, gender, and ethnicity, so it may be reflective of local policing, the senator said, according to this Gazette reporter. Now, the bill encourages people to go to court and take care of their warrants so that they can get their tax return, rather than waiting until the warrant is served. This also protects both residents and officers, Riley said, by removing the point of conflict sometimes involved with serving a warrant. Riley's bill is designated as an emergency bill that will become law as soon as it was signed by Governor Larry Hogan, if it makes it that far. It would authorize the government officials charged with serving a warrant to inform the comptroller of outstanding warrants, and would require the comptroller to then withhold an individual's income tax refund until the warrant is no longer outstanding. This includes criminal arrest warrants or warrants resulting from a failure to appear before a court of the state, a violation of the Maryland vehicle law that is punishable by a term of confinement, or a violation of probation. It applies only to individuals who reside in Anne Arundel County or who have an outstanding warrant from Anne Arundel County. Another interesting piece of legislation being introduced this session, which is near and dear to my heart, is one that witnesses Delegate Sandy Bartlett teaming up with Senator Cheryl Kagan on legislation that will require correctional facilities to provide an inmate who has completed their sentence with a voter registration form and information about voting rights before releasing them. Quote, "Not all ex-felons are aware that their right to vote has been restored," Bartlett said. For her, it's about restoring dignity and helping people realize their rights. While individuals are not eligible to register to vote while they are serving a court-ordered sentence of imprisonment for a felony conviction, they are eligible to register to vote upon completing that sentence, according to the Maryland State Board of Elections. But what they don't say is they're also eligible to register to vote and vote even while they're serving that sentence, as long as they're not behind bars. Now, this bill requires that a correctional facility inform an individual that they are eligible to vote after being released from that facility, but that they must register to vote in order to exercise that right to vote. When Kagan asked for Bartlett's support on this bill, she said she didn't hesitate for a second. It hits close to home for her, she said, because she has a family member who was previously incarcerated and now has their right to vote restored. This legislation would add on to what is being done by my little sister, Nicole Hansen, and those faithful members of Out for Justice, which would allow for detention centers, which house inmates who have not yet been convicted of a crime, to register and or cast their ballot while incarcerated by establishing the detention center as its own polling place. Now, I personally was the author of the original piece of legislation that became law in 2007, the Voter Registration Protection Act, that restored voting rights to former felons across the state of Maryland upon the completion of their court-ordered sentence. I was honored to support Delegate Corey McCrae's legislation in 2015 that pushed that envelope and allowed former felons to vote even while on parole or probation, making the current law real simple. If you aren't behind bars, you can register to vote and vote. However, there are still folks being held at local detention centers across the state of Maryland who have not yet been convicted of a crime, or those who were convicted, but merely convicted of a misdemeanor, not a felony, which means they are still eligible to vote. But both the Department of Corrections and the Board of Elections are not making voting available to these inmates. We want to change that this session. Shout out to Out for Justice and Nicole Mondell for their outstanding work and advocacy on not only this legislation, but so many more, especially when it comes to those prior used to be incarcerated. And a reminder that tomorrow night, starting at 5 p.m., the DMV Daily Radio Show will be live with our special Value My Vote 2020 mayoral program, as I host 4 of the top mayoral candidates, starting with TJ Smith at 5 p.m. You know, that former spokesman for the Baltimore City Police Department. Great fella. He's going to be followed by State Senator of 43rd District, Mary Washington, at 5:30. Then City Council President Brandon Scott joins us at 6 o'clock. And we close out the show with former Mayor Sheila Dixon at 6:30. You do not want to miss this hard-hitting show on Tuesday, January 7th, live on our Facebook page at DMV Daily News, starting at 5 and going through 7 p.m. Now, I'm your man, Mr. Politics, and this has been your DMV Daily Dose for Monday, January 6, 2020. For more information on the articles that I've mentioned, just go on over to our website at www.dmvdaily.news.